Hello and welcome to another painting tutorial from That Welsh Nerd, and today I'm going to be showing you how I paint my Dusk Raiders from the Primaris space, as you've seen in my Primaris project videos. However, to show it's not just limited to Primaris Marines, I'm using a Mark IV Sergeant here from the Betrayal at Calf box. Just to show the fact that it isn't just something you can do for Primaris Marines, and it works quite well on standard Space Marines. So I've obviously undercoated this with black paint. I used Abaddon Black, and then the first layer paint we're going to put on is Skaven Blight Dinge. So we put the brush in some water, and then you want some nice thin down Skaven Blight, and then you just want to apply it all over the model. I like to start at a nice flat area like the rear of the groin plate, and you just want to put it all over the model and get as much even coverage as possible. A paint like this, it will require 2 thin coats just to make sure it's covered it evenly. So we'll cut back in a second once this is complete. Okay, now that we've got a nice even coverage of Skaven Blight Dinge over the model, the next colour to put in is Corn Red to do the infamous red right arm, but also because this is a sergeant, I'm also going to paint the right knee pad and the helmet stripe there as red. So, same process as always, shake your paint up, dip your brush in some water, and you want it nice and thin, and it will take 2 coats. So if I just show you, I'm going to go straight into the arm here and just paint the entire thing red. Try and get it as smooth as possible, and 2 coats again. And here now we can see we've got a nice clear solid red coat on the right arm, the pauldron plate, the head stripe and the left knee guard. So the next thing to do is one of the last big solid colours on the armour, and that is Gehenna Gold, to do all the golds obviously. For this I'm going to be focusing on, let's just get it a little bit closer, details such as the skull on the helmet, the chest adornment and the pauldrons. But also because of this piece, I'm also going to paint the studs gold as well. So as always, dampen your brush, shake the paint pot thoroughly, and then you just want to load up your brush, wipe off a little bit, and then start. I personally like to start in the shoulder blades, like so. You just paint it up. Usually I find, again, this takes 2 thin coats to cover, and that's what you should be going for anyway. Like Duncan on the Warhammer channel likes to say, it's better to do it with 2 thin coats of coverage as opposed to 1 thick that makes it look really nasty. Okay, so once all this gold's painted, I'll be back to you to show you what it looks like. Okay, so the golds are painted on, and I know it looks incredibly bright, but we will come on to dealing with that later, I promise. So the golds are done. And now we're moving on to one of the final block colour for the armour, and one of the last pieces you'll paint of the actual model, including the weapons. And that is another bit of black. For this I'll use Abaddon Black, and you're looking to fill in all the joints. For example, if I just start on the back of the legs, are usually a good place to see one. So we'll start in here, and we'll just paint black joint in there, like so. And I'll do it again here. And we're just looking to fill that in all the joints, whether it's the legs, arms, both the red and grey arms, the gap in the thighs here, etc. And then on the weapon side, then we'll want to paint the casing of the bolt gun, or in this case the combi bolter, or the combi plasma, and the grip of the sword. And I'll be back with that once it's done. Okay, so the black joints have been painted, as well as the casing of the combi bolter and the guard of the blade. So we're on to one of the utmost last steps for the last solid colour you'll do for this model, let's say. And that is, you're using lead belcher for this. And here we're going to be painting things like the sword blade, the metallics of the bolt gun, and just the tubes and stuff on the helmet. So once the paint has been given a little shake and opened, use a fine brush again. And we're doing things like, so I'll just start on the blade. It's a nice open surface just to show you. And we're just painting straight up, and we want to get one coat of it. Hopefully this will only require one coat because it likes to cover blacks. However, if it requires more than one, obviously keep it nice and thin and then redo it. At the same time, this step is a very good time as well to look for any errors you've made, like I've leaked some gold off there, so I'll want to take some skin black dinge, or sort out the shoulder there where it's bled a little bit, etc. So, and then I'll be back once all these silvers and tidying up are finished. Okay, so once all the silvers have been painted in and the model has been tidied up, the next step is to start applying some shades. So first one I'm going to start with is Carabag Crimson, which, as you can imagine, goes on all the reds on the model. So that includes the arms, the right arm, but also the helmet stripe and left shoulder plate if it's a sergeant, for example. So you just plaster this on really thick, let it run into the recesses, etc. And this will just really bring out the red, and it'll just richen the colour a little bit. It'll stop it from looking so flat because it'll also fill in the gaps, the recesses, etc. So you just want to cover all the red with that, including things like the helmet stripe and the knee pad. Once you've done this, you're going to need to leave it dry for a little bit. And then once you've done that, you need to apply Agrax Earthshade to all the golds on the armour, as well as the silver of the helmet. So I'll come back once that is done. Okay, so once that step is done, the golds are considerably darker, but they still look gold, which is the look I was going for. The final step is some edging to do, where we use two colours. The first is Mephiston Red, and the second is Administratum Grey. And we're going to edge highlight the reds and greys, obviously, with them. Now, I'm a firm believer when it comes to edging that it should only be done on something you can get your brush at a 45-degree angle at. So for example, once I've put this paint on the brush, if we take a look at the shoulder plate, you can't fit anything in there, not a brush, but on this arm you can fit the brush up against this groove and just gently drag it across like so, to just pick out the edge and to brighten it up. And you do very similar, well not very similar, you do exactly the same to the grey. Then you just build up along the solid edges the lighter grey. There is an alternative option here. The only reason I'm edging the grey is because it's such a flat colour. And you can choose to do instead a wash of Nuln Oil over the entire armour, well all the greys, and then pick back up the grey instead. Or do both. But my personal taste is to keep the grey flat and then bring it up using the highlighting around the solid edges. But of course that's your personal taste and you can do it as you wish. So that's the red just about done. It really isn't a lot to do. I might do just inside here as well, just to get that solid bit of colour up. It's not a lot, it just adds that little bit of pop along the line there, etc. Just to add a little bit of colour to the red. Let's get some photos, just to get some shade difference in there, just so it looks visually different. And then you do the same thing using Administratum Grey on the solid plate, so I'll just show you that in a second. So for example, let's take this knee pad here, so at a 45-degree angle, just run the edge of your brush across, like so. That's a little bit much there, so that's going to need to be touched up. Like that. Like so. And you'll do that over the entire model, and eventually you'll get something that looks similar to my Primaris Marines. In the end, you'll get something that looks like this, with solid edge highlighting for the greys. It is something that works on regular Marines, as I showed. So yeah, in the end you'll get something that looks similar to something like this. So that then once you've done that edge, the last step you need to do is just run Nuln Oil over the weapons, both the bolt gun and the blade of the power sword. So that's it. That's how you paint my Dusk Raider paint scheme. I hope you've enjoyed this painting tutorial. I will catch you in the next one. Thank you.